All right. So I'm going to talk for a couple minutes today about being a very parent centric society. Um, you know, oppression of children is incredibly real. Children are one of the most oppressed demographics because a majority of parents are using oppressive parenting tactics and parenting techniques while raising their children. Um, it's really hard to be a kid um, because, apart from just learning the world and seeing everything from the first time and like the developing brain and all of this other stuff, children come into this world with no power. And this is a power centered society and structure. And children come into this world with so little power, they have zero tools for self defense or any of the things that they would need to have their needs met. Children are born with the ability to cry, and they've got some hand flailing movements. Um, and they come in this very fragile, vulnerable, and disempowered state. And as we raise them, we tend to keep them very much so in that disempowered state. Um, and our society not only encourages that, but that is seen as good parenting. And one of the narratives around um, parenting that I see come up a lot, is, you know, um, we tend to think, maybe because kids are, supposedly, I say this in air quotes, kids are more compliant. Not necessarily true, right? But they are more easily overpowered. They don't have any of the powers that would allow them to break free from the situation. They don't have legal power. They don't have physical power. They don't have financial power. And they don't have the emotional power to walk away from the people. Like, none of this exists in a child's world. And in the parent centric society that we live in, we do tend to flip the script enough that we feel, gosh, I want to be really careful saying this, but I feel like we flip the script enough that somehow we become the victims in the narrative. You know, um, we're exhausted and we're out overtouched and we're tired of cleaning and tired of yelling and all of these other things, right? And suddenly in our world, we've flipped that narrative to where all these child, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate child behaviors are our burden and the bane of our existence. And so then it becomes really easy for us to use our powers in a way to gain compliance from our children, and have that feel kind of, again, air quotes, a lot of air quotes in this conversation, have that feel like the right path, right? Um, and we're taking liberties as parents in all kinds of areas where we feel that, for the greater good, because we absolutely have to, capitalism, blah, 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 right? All those other things. That we're taking the liberties to override, overpower, and use a lot of force in order to maintain and or regain our own comforts. And now I'm not saying, me, I think we all deserve a certain modicum of comforts in our life. I'm certainly not saying that, we too don't deserve to be comfortable, that we too don't deserve to have life feel good and safe and secure and all of these other things. But what I am saying is that it's our job to create a safe, secure environment, learning platform for our children to grow in, right? And it's not our children's job to do the same for us. It's not their job to create nor maintain the environment that we're living in. Um, so, you know, again, it's like I feel like if we just relaxed and lived together as human beings and families and took away some of the power dynamics that make it feel like we have to be in control of this ship at all times, we could see each other a lot more clearly and it wouldn't be an us against them type of a situation. But it really comes out in the narrative that we're seeing being an us against them in parenting. It's like, well, kids absolutely need to go to bed by said hour because I need XYZ, XYZ. And if kids don't go to bed, then my needs aren't met. And that's really focusing ourselves and our needs and not taking the time to look at our children and our children's needs. And when not operating from a power dynamic and we remove ourselves from this headspace that the very existence of our kids is a problem or that maybe I'm not expressing that quite right. I'm having a little bit of trouble wording around this because I think it's really important to be like really direct and honest about these things and like really break down, peel off the layers and think about parental oppression and the ways that even us as gentle parents may still be engaging in those tactics, right? And um, then there's that part of me that's always afraid that I'm going to say something that'll offend or that'll hurt somebody or be taken in a context that it wasn't intended to be taken. So I really struggle with the wording around certain things sometimes. But, the point being that when we're structuring everything in our lives around our needs, we're being parent centric and we're being us centric. And most of the time, we're looking in from an angle where we're doing that because we need to remove all this burden that our children are putting upon us. And so much of that is just social. So much of that is just what we're seeing around us and what we're being told and what's been being fed to us and the ways that we were raised and all of these other things. Um, Again, if we peel off the layers and we just hold ourselves accountable to interact with the power that we have with great integrity, um, then we can reach a place where instead of being parent centric, and we don't even have to be child centric, but wouldn't it be wonderful if we could meet in the middle and care again about everybody's needs? Now, so I'll just kind of like sum this up here with an example of what that would look like in actual application. It's like when we're being completely parent centric, we're like, kids need to go to bed by this hour because XYZ, my needs. Like, I'm not going to blah, 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 my needs. When we're going to be being completely child centric, we're going to be like development and kids environment and no control over here from me. And, we just kind of laissez faire and see how this thing goes. Right. Um, but if we're just like humaning on a human level where we see people more clearly and like we interact with each other's needs, then we're just looking at bedtime. The end of the day has come and people's going to be tired. And how do we navigate through this thing so that everybody's needs get met? The kids have needs at the end of the day. Some of them might not be exactly going to sleep right the second. Some of them might be meeting, a need for connection, or a need to talk about things, or, just a need to sit there and relax, or whatever those different needs may be. um, so if we, I guess, remove that layer where we're looking in kind of as the martyr, and like our children are over there as the burden, and we need to make tons of adjustments to their behavior and to their existence so that we're doing better, then we can just see each other more clearly on a more human level, and we can navigate the things that are right there in front of us without all of this other power dynamics and social beliefs and all of the other things that get fed into that really affect the day-to-day life with our children and our spouses and our loved ones, and like all of that stuff. It really does affect our day-to-day life in such huge, massive ways. That impact is out there. So I think I'll leave it at that and get to the sharing portion of the call. Thank you all very, very much for being here today. And if anybody would like to go first or last or not share at all, any of that stuff, just let me know in the way that feels most comfortable to you. You can type it or raise your hand or unmute yourself, whatever feels best. I'll just go ahead and shut off this recording and we'll get going.